Hello everyone, welcome to my weird and wonderful world. And today I'm going to be talking more about my Montreal adventures. Now, mind you that I have a lot of memories and times in Montreal that I want to bring up, but I only want to be able to bring you the memories and the stories that I can get right in my head, because there's so much stuff I know I'm forgetting, and I want to be able to tell you these stories in a way that makes them interesting and fun for you, because I tell you, some of these stories were kind of fun for me. I'm going to be jumping around between timelines here and there. I'll try to keep it, I'll try to guide you in the right direction of where my stories are going. Now, my first story, and there's going to be at least 5 or 6 or 7 stories here, but they kind of connect in some ways. So my first story is about, and I think this may have happened in 2005, 2006 maybe, could have been 2004. So it was around that time. I don't know the exact dates on this stuff, but when you go into the old Montreal, and where the bus station is on Barrie, there's the Barrie Metro, and if you go down Barrie Street all the way down to where the line where it stops at the very end, there's a clock tower that's there. It's just a clock tower. It's just one big building, and when you go inside, there's all these stairs, and they're all numbered. There's like way over 1,000 stairs you have to climb, going spiraling up and up and up and up. That was a fun little climb. It's hard, you feel it in the legs going up. It's much easier coming down than it was going up. Now, mind you that this clock, ever since I had been in Montreal from the beginning in 2001, had always been stuck on the same time. It wasn't a working clock, and I always wonder, why wasn't it working? Why wasn't it running? And I believe the time was stuck on something like 10. No, it was like, what was it? Maybe at like 2:15 or something close to that. If I remember correctly, I can't remember what time it used to be. But didn't we go up, okay? And I forget who I was with. I'm pretty sure it was a friend of mine that I'm just going to give the initials of JB. And I may have been with the Goof at the time. He may have been following me around at the time, but I can't be 100% for sure who was with me. I'm pretty sure JB was with me at the time. And I will tell a little story about him in the next episode. This is not about him. This is about something I did. Now, I can't tell you what possessed me to do this, and it just, to this day, I still am kind of giddy that I did this, and when I did this little thing, I know my friends with me at the time were like, what possessed you to do that? It's just because it was there, and just because for the longest time, I didn't know why the clock wasn't working. So here we are. We had gone to the top, and on our way down, nobody else was in the tower. Didn't I get just the impulse? And again, I don't know what possessed me to do it. Didn't I go and lean over the railing of where the one part of the landing of the stairs, and go and I move the pendulum over? Click, click, click. I started the clock. Now, for at least 3 to 4 years, since I had been there, that clock was never working. It was always stuck on the same time. But I leaned over and I started that clock. Again, what possessed me, I can't tell you to this day. It was just I had this urge, this impulse to just lean over and start it. So yeah, yeah. I started the clock, and I'm like, okay, maybe we should go before somebody realizes I just started the clock. So we got to the bottom and we took off. There was no cameras in there at the time, and usually, from all I remember, it was never open. It was the first and only time that I was in that clock tower, and yeah, something possessed me to start that clock. It's crazy, eh? That me, so, the type of person I am, I was adventurous. I was always willing to go outside my comfort zone and do weird things. I'm a weird guy in some ways. I'm a nice guy. I'm polite. I'm the first type of person that will. I'm the type of person that will help you out when I can, as long as it's not going to really take me off my game or something. But I will do my best to help people whenever I can. But why would I do something? And I got a couple more stories coming up soon there in this episode. That, again, what possessed me to do stuff like that, I don't know. But like I say, I can be adventurous, and I like pushing the envelope a little bit whenever possible. It just makes life interesting. I'm always looking to make life interesting in my own way. I am not like that anymore. Not like I was in Montreal. Well, because in Montreal, I felt anonymous. I felt like, my past wasn't there to remind people of how I grew up and being poor and being from this and that. I had no people were not there to tell stupid stories about me and the stupid things I did as a kid. Because yeah, it was the environment I grew up in. It was just not the coolest. Most of my moralities, as I said before, come from my entertainment, the things that I watch, like Star Wars and Star Trek and so on and so forth. Now, this is not necessarily a story, but it's something, an observation and a cool place that I seen in Montreal that I kind of wish they kind of would do something like this in Moncton, because in Montreal, of course, no matter where you go, you're going to have a homeless population, people that are living on the streets. And sometimes they just need a place to go where they can relax and catch a, and just not worry about certain things. There was a park in Montreal called VJ Park. Now this, from what I had understood and from what I've learned, was a park for the homeless people. It was a park where you could go have there was a toilet facility, there was a place where you can get showers, and it was in a park. And this is the one place where the homeless could go and not be harassed by police or anything. You could even and it was not legalized at the time, but it is the one place where you could go and smoke dope, like smoke weed at, and not get in trouble. They had officers every once in a while walk through the park, but they never were there to bother anybody. You were allowed to be yourself. You were allowed to do certain things and not be bothered. Now, I had also met a friend of mine that I have talked about, which I named JB. I'm not going to say his full name because this was a kind of a weird guy too, but he had an interesting look to him, and we kind of befriended each other. Now this guy's weirdness, okay, was from he was a really great artist. He like a good cool cartoonist. But his thing, and it got him in trouble a few times, and he showed me, and I kind of, I didn't really say much about it because I liked the artwork, but the subject matter of what he was drawing was just a little strange, and he gotten beaten up for it too, because he would show people. And it was like, I kind of tried to tell him, you shouldn't be showing people like that, because it's not normal. Apparently, because he grew up in the city all the time, and and he had never been in the country before. So I think he was like maybe 8 or 9, and he had gone to the country and he was seeing animals, basically wild animals, for the first time. And so he fell in love with certain animals, especially wolves. So he had a thing for wolves. And when I mean he had a thing for wolves, he would draw these pictures of bestiality. If you know what that means, yeah. I'm not going to explain what that is. If you're curious of what that is, look it up. But yeah, he was doing these bestiality pictures. And yeah, it got him in trouble. The guy was a cool guy, I mean, in other ways. You know, I couldn't really relate to him, but I respected that he had a weird way of thinking about things. Yeah, the bestiality thing was a weird one. But it was I friended this kind of guy because it was a learning experience of taking people as they are, and not having having certain expectations about people, trying to leave your expectations at the door and try to relate to the person and try to see their point of view of why do you. And yeah, it kind of was explained to me when he told me that story of how when he first went to the country, and he fell in love with animals and thought that animals were better and much better than how he'd been treated by humans. So why would he not love animals in that way, rather, like, because of the mistreatment he got from humans, from people? I understood where he was coming from, even though it was weird, and I tried to curb him away. This guy also played a didgeridoo, you know, but he would make out of PVC pipes himself, and he was sitting in the park and yeah, it was crazy times. And yeah, I believe I had met him while I was in VJ Park, and that's where I used to go to smoke pot and just kind of, you know, get away from the troubles, because everybody in that park respected each other, as long as you weren't super weird and didn't kind of pee off certain people. So so yeah, I felt safe there. I felt protected. Nobody ever bothered me or even gave me half a look, because I was just one of the other homeless at the time. So yeah, VJ Park. And I don't understand why we can't have someplace in Moncton like that, where the homeless can go and hang around and be accepted and not be bothered. You know, if you were able to even set up tents in there, and if you had no place to stay and you had a tent, you could pitch a tent in there and again not be bothered by the police. Now I'm going to go and fast forward to a few years later, when I was and switch gears on my stories and talk about a good friend of mine. Well, we'll call him Keo, cause his name is a lot longer, but his shortened name is Keo. Keo blah 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 blah. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to embarrass him or be like, he was a really good friend of mine, and he was Native American. His mother was French Canadian, from, I think, from Montreal and that, and his father was Native. But he was a cool dude, and he was a drinker. He liked every now and then getting a big bottle of the strongest alcohol, sometimes like 8.9 or 9.9, and he would drink it like it was water. He could, like, once he starts drinking that, if he only drank one bottle, he was okay. He was easy. He was fun and kind of livened up a little bit. It's when he started getting into that second bottle that I didn't want to be around him. And he was staying at the Salvation Army men's shelter where I was staying at the time, and we had a curfew. If we weren't inside by a certain time at night, we were locked out until at least 5 a.m. And sometimes when he would start that second bottle, he would try, never did, but he always tried to keep me out overnight so he can drink more and have fun but I always needed my sleep. You know, I wanted my sleep. I wanted my bed. I felt comfortable in my room, and but we had some really interesting adventures, Keo and I. We would hang out at on René Levesque. There was this industrial, like I call it, an industrial park. It wasn't like a park with trees and that, but it had all these cool metal sculptures in it. And at the back of the park, like facing a cool highway system that we could watch the cars go by, and it was a beautiful place. It was the perfect place to watch the moonrise. Whenever there was a full moon coming up, I would love to go to René Levesque Park. It was an industrial park. There was a cool industrial museum across the street from that park that I actually went in there once to take a look at the cool sculptures and stuff that they had. But we would hang out there, and I remember at the time we were hanging out with this Afghanistan guy, a really interesting guy. His name was Wahid. And yeah, we were all smoking pot at the time. We would go there to smoke pot because we weren't allowed to smoke in the Salvation Army men's shelter, also known as the Booth Center. But I remember one day in particular when I had a Spider-Man book, and you know me, I love Spider-Man. I had a Spider-Man book, and they were rolling joints. And we had no filter paper to make a filter for the joint. Didn't Wahid was like looking at my book and kind of licking his lips, thinking, "Well, can't we use your book?" And I'm like, "Why would you ask that? Of course not. It's my book. I'm not gonna tear apart my book just for that. We'll find some other way to make a filter." So anyway. But a couple of interesting stories like at least 4 stories that I have that will fill out the rest of this episode of Moestories, because the adventures that me and Keo went on down the street from the these are funny stories. Down the street from where we lived, there was another a big building that was kind of squared off, okay, and the only way it had buildings all around it, and there was an inner space that you can only get into by, well, we called it the cubby hole, and it was just one archway where you could drive in and park on the inside of this complex. And all around it was all these buildings and apartment buildings, and one side of it had a Salvation Army thrift store where where a big kind of warehouse where they would take in these donations and stuff. There was one part of that when you first come into that little passageway off to the right, there was a loading dock that had a bit of a rise to it, maybe a good about 2 feet. One day, I don't know, I thought I could, okay. I wanted to see if I could jump both feet from the ground and jump up on top of the concrete lift there. like I said, it was about good maybe 2.5 feet tall, and I thought for sure I could make it, and I almost made it. I got to where my toes were on to the edge, and didn't they slip, and I scraped both of my knees right here. I think I still have the scars there. I haven't looked in a while. Oh, oh, they hurt for a while. I was like, oh, and Keo was just laughing at me because I slipped and it scraped. It scraped, like skin came off and everything, and it's like, ah, oh. Yeah, that was a mistake. I should have never tried that. I thought for sure I could jump up, with both feet and land on the landing. But nope, no way, no way. So I didn't even give it a second or third try because I was in pain. I was like, ah, it hurt, it hurt, it hurt. But we had some weird, unexplained phenomenon that happened to me and Keo. First one, and these things happen around the same day. These three next events happen all on the same day, and it's astonishing. First of all, in a big parking lot, maybe okay, there was the lock systems for old Montreal where the ships come in and stuff. Okay, and we were next to an old abandoned. It was a post office that wasn't being used, but they had a giant parking lot, and we were at least maybe a half a mile away from where the locks were. But right in the middle of this parking lot, like in the middle, and why it was there and how it got there, we have no idea. But we found a big pile of squid, like from the ocean, in the middle of a parking lot with no explanation of how in the world did it get there. We had these scenarios that like, did it come and rain from the sky all in this one spot, maybe as big as my room, like just all the squid around. And at that time, okay, it was daytime, and there was a cloud formation, some clouds, nice white fluffy clouds, and didn't one of the clouds have a perfect hole going, like it was a perfect round hole going straight through the cloud? Finding weird squid in the parking lot and then seeing a cloud, like a perfectly beautiful big white cloud with a perfect cylindrical hole going all the way through it. How was that made? Where, like it was weird. It was weird. I can never even to this day I have no idea of how that happened, both the squid and the hole. But also that same day, didn't we see a fox, like in the city? Like there was wooded area a little bit around the area, but having a fox being in the city like that, and didn't like, we were kind of, here boy, come in. Didn't that fox follow? It didn't come close. It wouldn't come close to us, but it followed us for blocks and blocks and blocks around the city. We were leading it around and around, and it kept on following us as the evening was going. How this fox, got into the city like that, and why it followed me and Keo around, that was crazy. It's just insane how that happened. All on the same day. Unbelievable. Still to this day, I still can't believe something like that happened. It's probably one of the strangest days I ever had in Montreal. Those unexplained phenomenon like that. But me and Keo, also, we were pretty adventurous. And there was The first thing, okay, we would look for these abandoned buildings that were just fenced off. There would be like this hole through the fence that you can get in, and we would find a way into the buildings to explore it. For the first place that we went to was a 15-story high grain silo. The stairs were pretty rickety, but we made it up to the top. The door would open, and what possessed us to go in there is that we saw people up there already, like maybe a few days earlier, up there sitting there and waving to them, and they waved back to us. So me and Keo, we figured, whoa, we gotta explore that. It'd be another notch in my belt of cool things that I did in Montreal. So yeah, we went up there onto the grain silo, and if you were up there with us, you would see that there was not much. There wasn't too much of a. It was not safe. It was not safe. It was pretty solid roof, but there was a drop off on three sides when you get up through the door. And I remember the first time up there, because it's so high up, you get a little spooked because you're pretty high up. But after about maybe 3 or 4 minutes of getting used to just being at that height, we were up there walking around like we were on the ground, even running a little tiny bit. It was totally unsafe. I would go right to the edge and look down like 15 stories of a drop. If I would have slipped in any way, I would have been dead. There's no way I would have survived that fall. But yeah, we went up there at least 2 or 3 times until about one time we were going to go, and then they really secured that fence, so there was no way of getting back in there. But it was a fun thing to do. Breaking the law, I guess. But we had to, because we were. I mean, for being the age I was in my 30s, in my mid 30s, still feeling like a teenager in many ways, exploring these places that I shouldn't have been in, but I went anyway because why not? You only live once, and if you're not pushing the envelope just a little bit and living a little, you're not really living. It was fun. It was just fun for us. It was a break from the everyday monotony of trying to make a living and trying to be something and finding yourself. But the second time we kind of broke into an abandoned building was a place. It was a lounge. It was called. We had a sign on it that said Lowney. It was a Lowney building, and if you know what Lowney is, it's a chocolate factory where they made chocolate. But prior to it being a chocolate factory, it was a brewery. Because when we went at dark, when it got dark enough, we had flashlights with us, and yeah, we had to be careful because there was again rickety stairs that felt like they would give out at any moment. There was elevator shafts with no elevator in it, and if you weren't careful, you could have easily walked in there and fallen. We know, of course, we got in there safely enough, and we were careful, and we did. And I remember when we got onto the roof, and it was at least a good, again, at least maybe about 15 floors high, and being amongst all these other cool, tall buildings around us, and looking over the edge of the building and seeing the traffic below. It's probably the highest I've ever been, like in height, into any building. I'm still glad that I went because it was still an adventure, but it was careless of me, and we should have never have been doing stuff like that. But I was exploring the city in my own way, and again, liking to push the envelope just a little bit. Didn't really think about my safety as much. I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to break away from the everyday, coming and going of trying to live. So yeah, we've had some adventures. We had some good times, and those are some of my stories of things that I did and things I've seen and people I've met in Montreal. And another quick little story, just to end up. There, every once in a while, me and Keo would try to borrow a basketball, and there was a cool little basketball court not too far from the Salvation Army men's shelter that we were living at the time. And he always bugged me to come out, play some basketball with me. And I'm not a sports fan. I'm not. I do like basketball. Out of all the sports out there, basketball is the one I kind of do like the most. I don't watch it or anything or but I will watch it if a friend of mine wants to watch it wants me to watch it with them. I will watch it and still enjoy the game, but I'm not a basketball fan. But here we were in this cool little basketball court shooting hoops, and we were talking about when how basketball players will get in flow states, okay? And he was talking about how you have, and he's the one that taught me how to curve your hand. To curve your hand in a way when you're shooting your ball, you got to curve your hand to get it to going where you want it to go a little easier. So that was a cool little tip that he taught me. But he said, okay, I want you to try something. Before you take your shot, close your eyes and imagine yourself taking the perfect shot of getting it in. Do it several times in your head before when you open your eyes, start shooting the ball. And didn't I shoot from the line, it was and it was pretty much like regulation height, like in a professional basketball court. It was a nice high basket. We were far enough back. But didn't I do 10 in a row? 10 in a row. I had never been able to do that before, or probably since. I haven't really tried. But yeah, it was weird. And as soon as I opened my eyes and I did those perfect shots, 10 in a row, until I think something distracted me, and I lost my concentration, and only then did I miss the next shot number 11 or so. Yeah, so that was another cool little experience that I don't think I'll ever really experience again, of being in that weird mindset, that flow state. So I'm going to just conclude it with that. Before, I don't want these videos to get too long. My first video is the longest one, but I want to keep these at least under 40 minutes when possible. Just a couple of stories to let you know that I do want to do at least one more part to this. And might be the last part I do, because I still have a few stories I do need to tell. Some cautionary tales, some really stupid things that I did, even more stupid than what I told in this episode. But I want to save that for at least the next episode. If I can remember other things that happened that I feel comfortable in talking about, and if I remember it correctly and I can make it interesting, I might make a fifth episode. But there is a fourth one coming, a fourth episode. So maybe look forward to that. Probably a week from now, I'll tell the rest of these stories. But for now, as always, I'm going to leave you here. And please be safe. Take care. I will see you on the flip side, and have a great day, evening, night, wherever you may be. Peace, everyone.